can switch off, you can mute your mics, but switch on your videos. Unmute when you need to speak. So have you people not downloaded Node Chrome extension? So if I ask you a question and raise your hand, can you raise your hands? Not in a visual manner. In a virtual manner, can you raise your hands? Do you have that option? Rachit has raised. Ankit is no. There's a there's a Chrome extension called Node. So if you download that on your system, you will be able to raise your hands. As we said last class also, these are going to be our practical training class where we need to work on our skills, abilities. Therefore, participating in the class is absolutely essential. So is my ability to see you people. You know about communication, you make lots of assumptions. Okay, how many of you can see the whole class? As of now, we have got 59 people. I can't see 59. They said I'll be able to see all the 59. Where are the others? I can see how many more. There are lots of students who have not asked me to enter the class, but they're all here. I don't know who all are here. I'm admitting today everyone, but we'll have to work out as to who all can join. Otherwise, I'll keep refusing admission. There were 6 of you who especially wrote to me, and I permitted. But I don't know how many already. So many of them, they're just coming. Who shared all these links? I asked everyone not to share any links. How many? Yeah, so how many of you can see how many of your class fellows on your screens? You know, there's a chat option.
16, ma'am.
16?
Yes, ma'am, 16.
I can see how many. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can also see 16. Yeah, because they said up to 200 one can see on the same screen with the app. Let me see. This app open. Okay. Now I should be able to see. I'll just let you know who all are visible. Still struggling with this new technology. Still can't see the whole class. Anybody who can see more than 16? Okay, I think I need one information from all of you who are not from my class. In the chat box, write down your name, roll number, center, section, whatever it is. If you're not in section B of LC1 5th semester, in the chat box, write down your name, roll number, section, center, wherever you are from. So I need to find out who all are outside my class today in this group. And I did ask, some of you whom I did permit to join this class. I said, please add ZX before your name. I'm not finding that for most of you. Kindly put that, otherwise we'll have a lot of problem with the attendance. So I can see a couple of you have put ZX. You have said ZK, but ZK will also put ZX. Aditya, you have to have ZX before your name, not afterward, because I will be sorting the attendance later on. And that will help me keep the outsiders at the bottom of the list and easily delete it from the register I have to use. So everybody who is not from this class, please add ZX before your name so that your attendance is counted at the bottom of the attendance sheet. So that's one. Okay, anybody who has some concerns about this course, what do you think this course is about? What are you expecting to learn in this course? Whoever wants to speak, please unmute yourself and answer. Ravi Singh Chikara, this information is not enough. You have to put your sections. Center, section, roll numbers, name, of course. Yeah, so what do you expect? What are you expecting to study in this course?
Ma'am, I think that we have been studying law for the past 2 years, and this particular subject will complete that arc of transformation and actually make us lawyer in all the mannerisms. We'll be actually able to understand the attributes of being a lawyer.
So what does it mean to you be a lawyer?
Ma'am, one skill that everybody gets hyped about is definitely the mooting skills. And for the past 2 years, I have been trying to learn the mooting skills as well. So for me, I'm really looking forward to conduct everything in the manner that has been highlighted by all the moot court competitions. And for me particularly, I have never been, I have never spoken publicly about all the pleadings and every sort of court procedures. So practical exposure is lacking. So I feel that this particular semester, I'll get exposed to that particular aspect. And for me, I think that as a lawyer, sorry, ma'am, I got the call. So for me, specifically, I feel ki I want to have that confidence wherein when I walk into a courtroom, so I don't look like a stranger over there.
Okay, so that's your expectation. Yes. And remember my class students. Anukriti, you are in my class or you are from outside the class?
Ma'am, I'm in your class.
Acha, Anukriti. Okay, yeah, because that's the other principle, that if the class will not speak, the students who are in the class will not take their first chance, the outsiders will take your time. So you have to jump into the occasion. The moment I say something, if you don't say it, then it is open to the outsider. Then we can't be unfair to them. Say, okay, my class is not speaking and I will not allow the others also to speak. The first chance is yours. So Anukriti has spoken about, she expects that she will gain the confidence of public speaking through this course. What are other people's expectations?
Ma'am, it is not just about public speaking, it is also about communicating privately with your client. So
Okay.
how do you present yourself to your client? How do you pay heed to his expectations from you, his case, and everything? And also, I think we are going to think about some dilemmas which I personally am facing in some legal cases. So through communication, through mooting, through art of oral advocacy, researching, and everything, we will be able to resolve that.
Okay. So you are saying communication per se, whether in private or in public.
Yes, ma'am.
What else?
I think
Ma'am,
this course is a real life
with
simulation of what a lawyer's life would be once we, graduate and experience the day-to-day working of a lawyer. So it is more of a simulation, and we can see what we can expect after graduating, and what could be a real life scenario. So we can we'll be working on something towards that. So.
Okay. And
ma'am,
to
basically,
you,
I think this course will
just
teach
one
about
second.
the.
Rahul, 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
Rajit, what do you think a life for a liar looks like? To you.
Sorry, ma'am.
To you, you said that you will be learning
Yes.
about how the life of a lawyer will be like. So do you have any sense of what it will be like?
Yes, it is starting from the interviewing of clients, and how you communicate, or how you take the problems of others and you manage them, and you consult other people, day-to-day managerial things that you learn. And my uncle is a lawyer, so I've seen him work, and I have seen how what all things he does, and how he does it. So in a way, this would be more similar to what he actually does in a day-to-day life. So
Okay. Rahul?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I think this subject helps in understanding and learning the art of advocacy through conducting mock trials, moot courts, and helps in a student who has learned a bit about law, or learning about law, to be a good advocate. And in all the subject reading, we will learn not only about courtcraft, but also about how to do legal research, or how to do case analysis, or how we go ahead with our argument preparation, and even body language. All those things, soft skills and hard skills, research skills, everything would be taught in this course, which would help us in becoming better at the art of advocacy and also in courtcraft. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. What do you understand by the word courtcraft?
Ma'am, the behavior, the line of argument, and the protocols that is followed in Indian legal system and courts.
Okay. Anybody else? Did you have the occasion to look at your course material? Have you looked at your course material?
Yes.
The one, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Those of you can
Yes,
raise your
ma'am.
hands. Raise your hands, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I've got about 3 or 4 yeses. What about the others? Company, please unmute yourself. Everybody who's having some kind of a Anukriti also says yes. No, it's always useful if you can download that nod thing, so that then I can see on the screen itself. I don't have to read the chat boxes as such. So Girish has also said yes. So some of you have looked at the material. So those of you who have looked at the material, can anyone tell us briefly what is this? What are the course content? How does it look like? And when I ask you to course content, I'm not wanting to say unit 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm asking you and everybody should read the initial introductory part. It is very important. And you do know that all the 100 mark, there is no written exam at the end of this course. This is very important to remember. So everything will happen during the semester. We do not know how long the semester is going to be. And it all, I think, from month to month, depending on the corona situation, it will maybe at some stage we might be able to meet physically, but otherwise it's going to be online. And for us, we are doing this course first time on the online platform. So as the the semester progresses, we'll figure out what are the best ways to deal with that. But certainly in this course, even though everything is the semester, there are certain parts which are oral and certain parts which are in writing. So look at that detail of it. In the certainly in the oral part, you cannot copy because you have to speak yourself. But in the written part, there is a tendency and there is a lot of desire to copy from the other. So far we have been little liberal and saying, okay, the part you copy, so there is a 15 mark part component in the written exam, and you copy that 15 marks worth of the write-up, we will give you 0 out of 15. But some student was very unhappy when we did that. He said, I have got no right of hearing. So the university said, it is a case of unfair means. So from this year onward, if anybody is found copying from each other, even though you might be writing about the same thing, because you might you will do the same case, for example, you might work in a group as much also, but you are supposed to write it in your own words. So if 2 scripts are found having the same language, content will be the same, but if the language is the same, we will just refer those scripts for unfair means, which means you might lose a semester. Earlier you are losing a few marks. Now, because of the students' objection to losing few marks, now you're going to lose a whole semester. But that is also fair because that's the system university has in all other courses, that if you are found cheating, it's a cheating scenario. And I'm kind of putting it out there in the very first stage itself before we're going even to the details of the course. So any written component, if found that you have copied it from the other, when it is exam purpose, both the scripts or 5 scripts or whatever number of scripts have got the same thing, all of them be referred to as unfair means, and you will have to defend your scripts before the unfair means committee of the university. So somebody was saying something? Okay, this is clear. We'll keep repeating this over and over again, so that you do not lose a year because of a little temptation to not do your own work and copy it from somebody else. There will be a lot of collaborative work, but writing has to be your own. To be very clear on that one. So there are 3, so far there are 3 components, and the course is as per the BCI guidelines. There's 1 component on moot court, another one on mock trial, and the 3rd one is on internship. Because of the lockdown, we are not sure at this point of time how that is going to work out. And we are hoping that as the semester progresses, we will get certain guidelines, some direction from the BCI as to what to do it. Our tentative thinking is that if the courts are not open, the chambers are not open, and you have not done your internship before, then in that case, we might divert the 30, so it's a 30 marks for each component, all the 3 components each, and then 10 marks for attendance. So attendance has a scale. 70% is your eligibility, and we again do not know how it will work out because I do have one student that is writing to me that he has not been able to join the class because of the EXS issues. So there will be issues with all of us having some access issues to the system. So I'm quite sure we will have some other direction also. But the scale has been that after 75%, I'm not too sure. You can check that out. It is written out there. I think other at 70 you get 1, then 75 you get 2, and then for every 5% later on you keep getting more, another 2. So which means that if you've got anything between 96 to 100% attendance, you get 10 out of 10. So 10 marks have been for attendance, but because attendance is again a tricky issue for this semester, we might have to rethink. So there are 40 marks. We might need to rethink as to how to distribute it, depending on how the things pan out for the semester. So do not panic on that ground. The other concern has been that now we have this system whereby we can take your attendance just by a click of the button on this system. So on that level, there are possibilities that when I can take the attendance at any point of time. I just have to press the button. And the system records whoever is present at that point of time. So it might be happen by chance that at that very moment you got disconnected, just 2 minutes before you got disconnected. And therefore there's a concern that I was there and you're not getting marked. So what I'm planning to do is that I'll have the attendance within the same period 3-4 times. So at least we are able to capture all of you at some time or the other. So we'll try to minimize that. But in any case, we still think. Kunal, please, no, Kumari Chandresh Upadhyay, kindly unmute yourself. So we do know that, so we will be, we are very constrained about this. We're keeping on record that if there is anybody who is not able to join for technical reasons, drop a line. Because this student, one student in this class has already written that he has tried 3-4 times and not even register. So we have put that in his office records. And I'm quite sure that we'll be keeping track of all the difficulties we are getting. So this scheme is one, but because of the practical realities of this semester being different, there might be adjustments on that. So far, any questions? Any clarifications, or everybody's following what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what we have here, I think I'll see where is the screen sharing option. Anyone who knows it? Okay, here it should.
Yeah, it's in the bottom. Present now.
Present now.
Yes.
Present what?
So it will ask you to present your screen.
I think a window. So this is the window. So here, objectives. So this one objectives, was divided into 4 components: moot court, mock trial, court visits, and viva voce. So viva voce, we're having attendance. So we might actually, Bharat, that's a good idea. Instead of attendance, we might do a viva voce for the 10 marks. Maybe, we do not know. The purpose is to expose the students to the system of administration of justice in real life by visiting various courts and chambers of practicing counsels. This learning is basic and essential for the study of professional course of law. By research, by learning the practical aspects about the court, the student shall engage advice in research, getting legal documents, filing and contesting the cases on strong grounds with India as well as in other countries. This is the outside, because I think we are not covering anything on the outside, on the other countries. So this is what we're expecting, that at the end of the semester, this is what you will be able to do. The student should be able to practice at all stages of any case matter and at all the fora with critical thinking. The critical thinking part is important. Do appellate advocacy by independent research, preparation of arguments and presenting arguments in a persuasive manner in appellate courts. Do trial advocacy. What does trial advocacy means? Case analysis, interviewing advice, how to conduct examination in chief and cross-examination of witnesses, preparation and presentation of arguments in facts and law in the trial courts. interview a client and advise them on procedural aspects of litigation, costs, and possible legal and social consequences. Lastly, work in teams and develop the cooperative nature essential for legal practice. Your generation of lawyers is certainly going to have a lot more working in a team scenario. Previously, individual chambers were there, but now lots of litigating firms are also creating firms. Previously, we had litigating lawyers and we had corporate firms. But nowadays, things are changing, and therefore, learning to work with people you do not know. And I said that in the last class also, that please identify people who you do not know as your group members. So during this today's class, we will be talking as well. So, okay, coming back to, where is my, yeah. So the first one, mock trial. How many of you know what is mock trial? Anyone who knows what's a mock trial?
And I think mock trial is false trial.
What is the difference between mock trial and moot court? No, what is the difference between moot court and mock trial?
Ma'am, in moot court there are just two parties.
Yeah.
Ma'am, in mock trials,
the
we
difference.
argue on the facts.
In moot court, you argue
No,
on facts.
ma'am, can I speak?
Yes, Ankit Chawla.
Ma'am, the difference is that in the moot courts we are there for the appellate cases, but in the mock trials we can also litigate on the first courts like local courts.
Yeah, that's very good.
जिनमें
That's
जो
exactly
local
the
court और district
difference.
courts होते हैं.
That moot courts is appellate advocacy, where because the major difference between appellate advocacy and the trial can be a plaint also. When we use the word trial, usually trial is used in criminal cases. But we are talking about mock trial. When we use the term, we're talking about the court of first instance where actual evidence will be adduced, either oral or documentary. People will be brought to the court to give evidence. In the appellate advocacy, we only look at court files, the records which are available in the courts. So we do not get a chance, excepting exceptional circumstances, very, very rare, where you might call a person actually to the court. Usually that doesn't happen in the appellate advocacy. It's only the files which have already been, the records which have been created at the district court level. These are sent to the High Court or whichever is the appellate authority, and we're talking about that. At the trial advocacy level, you have to first prove the fact. In the appellate advocacy, usually the questions are questions of law. The difference between question of fact and question of law, one is that the fact that A has stabbed B, has this fact been established by evidence? It's a question of fact. Who saw it? Was there fingerprints? Was there a report from the forensic science? Was there any eyewitness? These are the questions relevant to be answered by evidence. And if there is consistent evidence, we just say, yes, A did stab B. Is a fact established or not established? So certainly, you have read your Evidence Act. Evidence Act tells you that what are the admissible evidence and what are the inadmissible evidence. Suppose the trial court has made the big mistake, which they don't, of admitting hearsay evidence and saying because such and such person said that no, my son has told me that he was stabbed by B, and this is the only evidence to establish that B has stabbed his fellow son. So this is a hearsay evidence. On this basis, you cannot determine the fact that yes, B did stab the son. So you can make that argument of law in the appellate court saying that the High Court, that the trial court has wrongly accepted this fact to have been proved. So that's an argument on fact. But in the trial court, we are saying A, B, and C have given the same evidence to say yes, they were all eyewitnesses and they saw B stabbing the son. So that is an admissible evidence on the basis of which, and there's nobody who contradicts, there's no alibi. Nobody says, oh, B was with me, or the person who said, no, B was with me at that point of time, his evidence has not been found to be reliable. So, and therefore, the testimony given by XYZ should be accepted that yes, B has stabbed the son. That's an argument on facts. So you will be learning, because in the moot court category, we do not look at the facts. We take facts to have been established. We do not have to look for evidence to find out whether the facts have been established or not. So this is a very new thing that we will do in this course, that you will look at the evidence to find out what. So that's one component of the mock trial. The other is that if you have been hit in a road accident, you were standing on the red light and your car was hit. Now, you will say he was negligent, the fellow behind you, and that is how he hit your car. But is that the only possibility? Why do you think he hit your car? What is the possible answer?
He may be drunk, man.
He may be?
Drunk.
Might be he was drunk.
He might be drunk. One. What are the other possibilities?
It might be like we applied sudden brain.
Yeah, you could have suddenly stopped. And
he might have lost his control over the vehicle.
Might be he was
Right.
also
One, maybe the
following
car
traffic rules.
malfunctioned.
Maybe the
Rest
car was
driving.
malfunctioning.
Maybe using the mobile phone.
He was distracted. So there are a lot of possibilities. Now, as a victim, you do not know what is the real thing. You only know that you have been hit. So if you want to find out, so you will have, maybe he wanted to kill you. Is that a possibility? Only if he knew you, if you are following a certain route. So there will be certain possibilities which are possible and certain possibilities which are not possible, even on the basis of the facts which are in your knowledge. But there will be a lot of other facts. He was in a hurry. He had an appointment. So there may be any number of things. Maybe the light was obstructed for him. So he didn't see that there was a light because of which you would stop. So you didn't stop because there was a dog in front of your car. So there are any number of possibilities. So some information you would have, some information you do not have. If you want to find a case for compensation, you will have to first find out. You have, whether you ask compensation from him for negligence, for example. You will have to prove negligence. How would you prove negligence? What are the possible sources? What should be your story? What should be your explanation? What should be your argument to say, he hit me because he was negligent? You will have to gather information. So all that is not taught in any of the courses. But in this course, we will try to expose ourselves to that aspect and then hopefully find out what we call storing strategy planning. So that's all part of mock trial. Apart from examination, cross-examination, which you're familiar with, and the arguments, this is the pre-stage where, suppose there is a riot happening and there were 2,500 people involved. Would you call all the 2,500 as witnesses? Or there was a family feud, so in which two families fought, and everybody is aware. Okay, my voice is breaking. What am I supposed to do? I think we'll just have to wait for the net to improve. So, strategy of which witness, which person to call as a witness, who not to call as a witness, which evidence to put out, what evidence to look for. Some evidence will be in your possession, some evidence will be in the possession of the other side. How do you get access to that evidence? So all these are the part of preparing a case before you actually go to the court of law. So we'll try and learn as much of this part as possible. So going back to the scheme. Unit 2, moot courts. So you are familiar with moot court concepts. You can read the details here because we have done as earlier that was therefore spend a bit of time there. So there are this margin and all that. Then we have internship, which is tentative at this point of time, but it also is that in case it does, there's a few who have done internship earlier before the lockdown, either in courts or in the chambers. Nobody? I can see one hand up, but I can't see your name. Okay, I think I'll stop presenting. Then I think I will be able to see the names. Girish. So Girish has raised his hand. Anybody else? Because I think those of you who have done internship before, and this is all again tentative. Okay, I got one more person, Karan, saying he has done it. So those of you who have done internship earlier, you will be able to write down about those experiences on the lines we have given you in this paper. So we will have certain meetings with the other colleagues and decide what the final policy will be. But I think those of you who have done internship, or maybe whichever way it works out, so those of you who have done it already would have that option perhaps once we make that call on that ground, that you can, whether you can write about that. Because previous semesters, we did permit the students who have done internship earlier to write about those experiences and those documents, etc., as per the guidelines given in this course. So some of the students did it during the semester, some had done it beforehand. But in this semester, we will have to take a call whether we have double systems, whereby some students who have done the internship before can submit the internship diary. Amit Kumar, you're not supposed to be presenting. So everybody, so we'll return on that aspect. So for the time being, we'll put that on hold. So coming back to, okay, any more questions on the course content? Should I tell you the exact details about now it now says, in case of copying under any of the units of the course, matter will be reported to authorities. Suitable action be taken as per rules of the university. Then we have readings list, we have what problems, assessment. So attendance from 71 onwards, 71 to 75, 1%. Then onwards, 2 marks. Okay, and I think we need to look at, so please read further details. I don't think I want to spend more time on the scheme of the paper. Returning to the conversation, has anybody, do you remember that I asked you to think about groups of 6? Has anyone identified your group members? Do that in this week, form groups. Because the moment we get into activities, we will be asking you to work in small groups. So for the time being, we're in the process of setting up the MS Teams platform. When that gets sorted out, and hopefully it should happen within this week, then we might shift this whole class to the Teams platform. And for that, I think then we will have certainly the problem of the non-LC1 students won't be able to join. And also actually non-section B students may also not be able to join. We'll see that, because they're still setting up that whole thing. So one possibility is that you identify your group members. Is there anyone in the class who doesn't use WhatsApp? Okay, do you know how to use Zoom? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Because what I'll suggest
Yes, ma'am.
that if we do not shift to MS Teams, then you will have to create your small teams, work on Zoom platform in those small groups, do a video recording of that session and send me a link. So save it on your drive and send me a link so I can peep into what conversations took place in your groups. I suggest everyone please again come back. As many of you who can come on video, please come on video. Put on your videos. When I'm asked you to switch off, look at each other's faces. Now, this is a privilege you never get in the class because you have your back towards the others. You can't see their faces. But this platform does give us this chance. Now, look at the faces of everybody, the way we are seeing them, and what kind of impressions are you having in your mind? What kind of thoughts are you having in your mind looking at your any of the photos, any of the videos? Are you getting any thoughts in your mind? I can see some of you are adjusting your own videos now. That's important. That's the first thing. Because unless you are visible to the others, certainly they cannot have a conversation with you. And this is a different platform for communication. In the physical class also we say this, also look at each other, how you are sitting. What are your body postures? So we have, who is this person? Mayank. This is the body posture. So I'm just pointing out one, but everybody has our body posture. Whether the body postures convey anything to you.
It conveys that how attentive a person is.
I can see Varun, whose face is very close to the camera. So is Girish. Some of you have the light at the background. Some of you have got a very hazy picture. Some of your pictures are very clear. So when you look at each one of all of us at each other, what do you think about this person? What are your thoughts about this person's abilities, qualities, personality? Are you making any opinions? And I'm not asking you to pinpoint anything. Okay, this is only your thought process. Think in your own heads. Think on your own heads, look at each other's pictures and see, are you forming any opinions about this other person you are watching just by looking at the video? You can tell me yes or no. You don't have to tell me what you're thinking, but whether you're forming any opinions about this other person by the manner in which their video appears.
Yes, madam.
That is what happens to all of us. This is a very normal part of communication. Nobody is saying anything, we're just watching. But because of our own past background, we form certain opinions about that person just by visual. That person has not even opened their mouth. So first impressions are created just by the way you appear. The way you, and in the video conferencing, the way you set up your cameras, your laptops. So we'll have to learn to ensure that our visuals are clear when we get into a video conference. We do not know how long this corona thing is going to last, how long you will be doing only video presentations. So therefore, first of all, make yourself presentable, whether in the physical world or in the video, into the virtual world. So when we say that, what all will count, and whether this fact of being presentable is of any relevance to being a good lawyer. Whether good lawyering is about knowing the law, or the fact that how you appear, how you look also matter.
Ma'am, I think both these things play a vital part in how a person appears. Also, is important because the way he presents himself is an indication of how confident and how managed he is. I'm sorry for the background. I'm in the middle of a family function actually.
Okay. So, do you agree? The other rest of the class, do you agree with Anjali when she says that the way you appear, your appearance also count in addition to your knowledge of law? You think that's correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes, ma'am.
When
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
I'm quite sure all of us have met somebody or the other, a professional in our life, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a DDA officer, whether it's a Bijli wala office, wherever. If we have gone and met some strangers in an official situation where you are the client or somebody, so you're at one end, there is another person. So whichever, whether you are the official or you are meeting an official. And when by the word official, I mean that somebody who is in a formal relationship. So it may be your teacher, it might have been a doctor, it might have been a chemist, it might have been the lab assistant, anybody. So when you look at them, you form an opinion just by looking at them, even before they've opened their mouth. When you see
But is that why lawyers have the biggest and largest car?
Largest what?
Ma'am, there's a saying in Delhi High Court that lawyers have the biggest and biggest car. It's either by the strength of the argument or the length of the car. So does that everything forms a part of your being presentable?
The length of the car, the judge may have never seen. So we do not know that part of it. But the length of the car, the suggestion is also that he might be flouting his wellness. And we do know, I mean, quite many of us in this group itself, we must have got a bigger car. Not that we needed it, but we had the money. We want to show off. And we believe that the fact that I have a bigger car, for the boys, it will be said, okay, you will be attracting more girls, but a bigger purse. So there are always this kind of show of business, all right. So I'm not going there. I'm not into that extent that where you want to show off. But I'm saying basic decency appearance, basic decent appearance. So if you, so I'm asking you, when you met these people, if somebody was wearing a crumpled shirt, it was dirty, it wasn't clean, your first impression is कि efficient तो है ही नहीं बंदा, तो अपनी देखभाल नहीं कर सकता, मेरा तो क्या काम करेगा? Maybe he will do your work very, very well. It's not necessary that the one who is not wearing a clean shirt will not do your work, but your first impression before you interact will be negative. It might get redeemed for various purposes. So we do not want to start on a negative with a judge, with a fellow lawyer, with the opposition lawyer, with your clients. So therefore, it will have to be a way of life to be decently dressed. Not flashy, because flashy again can put off some people. But you have to be decently dressed. So when you say decently dressed, you are going to a party. You be decently dressed, or you would want to be flashily dressed? Just because you're a lawyer. Certainly, occasion determines. Okay, you should keep track of the occasion. So if you're coming to a class, you have a certain kind of dress code. You're going to a party, you have got a different kind of dress code. You're going to a beach party, a different set of clothes. So it's not, I'm not at all saying that everybody should all the time wear a tie and a suit and a formal wearing. But this is one of the important things. Actually, in my Elysian career, at some stage when, I joined so many decades ago, and we still had this issue as to what should the women teachers wear while going to the class. This was not an issue for the men. In fact, actually, it was for the men also. I had another colleague who used to go to his class wearing jeans. I'll look not antiquated to you, but this is the reality of my experience as a teacher, that my colleague who was wearing jeans to the class, he was asked to wear trousers to the class and not jeans, because students wear the jeans. Teachers should not wear jeans. In the girls, women category, women teachers, we were asked that you should be wearing saris to the class, not salwar kameez. certainly trousers and skirts were out of the question. So I've been through that phase where there were very straight jacket dress codes, informal of course, that as to how the male teacher should be dressed up for the class and what should the women should be. And certainly students had to be. So, but there were no direction as such that what should the students be wearing. But these social codes determine for the girls that they should be fully dressed, they should not be wearing shorts. Today, of course, we find students dressed up very differently, both boys and girls. But certainly, it is a transition which has happened. So there are professors, who were trained in Cambridge and Harvard kind of a thing. And I know some of my contemporaries, even today, when they go to the class, they wear a proper black suit with a tie. But that's how they think that the professor should look like. So certainly there might be scope for personal preferences, but there has to be a basic minimum level. And just because, not that you alone are decision maker, because also when it's a formal setup, how the other side will respond to you, and you want to create an ambience where you can have a conversation with the other. Therefore, appearances. Now we have Vivek Gupta. Now, Vivek Gupta, look at your video. Can you see yourself really? The light is so much behind you. So I'm just saying, I'm again pointing out that when you look at videos, first of all, look at your own video. Where is your camera placed? Are you visible properly to the other side? The point of the video is that other side should be able to see you. And at any point of time, if you because our rooms are not meant for work from home, but now we are faced with that situation. So therefore, take a minute to roam around in your room to see where you should be setting up your laptop or your cell phone so that your face is very clearly visible. Then I have Hemant. Hemant, you try and clean the what do you call that, lens of your camera. Maybe your picture will come out little more clearer. But it did happen to me at one point of time that my camera had got foggy and it was a very cloudy picture. So once I cleaned that, it became clearer. The same I will say for Prabhat Rana. That try and see whether there is a light in your room or is it your camera which is giving a little hazy picture. Yes, Prabhat?
My sister spilled milk over the laptop, so it's busted.
It's what?
My sister spilled milk over the laptop, so it gets into the camera.
Okay. Okay, so we are seeing you through the layer of milk. Okay, so these are the accidents which keep on happening. So, okay. Now, the second thing, now notice, now who is this person? Puneet. Puneet, I can only see you up to the eyebrows. You notice it that we can see only your face up to the eyebrows. So you need to tilt your camera so that yes, now I can see more of you, little more, so that we can see the full face.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. So these are the things, the first conversation when you are talking about skills of a lawyer, and we said communication in the virtual world and in the physical world. Your first appearance. One is the physical appearance. The second one is, the expressions on our faces. So how many of the faces, when we look at each other, we find that these are happy-go-lucky persons. These are very serious-minded persons. We're making all this mental assessments. This person is engrossed in some idea. This person is very intently listening. They're all making these assessments just by looking at faces. Are we not? Who is listening, who is not listening? In the classroom setup, we can actually see it a lot more easily than in the video setup. But at least we'll try to do the best of what we have today. So look at the expressions of everybody's face. And do you think there are some people, I do not want you to point out anybody, I want you to look at each other's faces and then notice, do you think this person should have a different expression, or we cannot know what this person is doing? I had a student in my class many years ago who had a completely opaque face. I could never work out. Is he listening? He's not listening? Is he happy? Is he unhappy? Completely opaque face. So at some stage I did say that, your countenance also communicates. For me, one of the very regular feedback I've got all these 30, 40 years I've been teaching, ma'am, आप थोड़ा smile क्या करो class में. But I've been smiling, from my side I've been smiling, but my class always tells me that I should smile more. And why does it matter whether the teacher is smiling or not? Is it of any importance whether the teacher should smile? Why should I smile? What do you think?
Yes, ma'am. It would give us more confidence to answer in your class.
Yeah, you're more accessible, if people are not afraid, because मेरी class usually बड़ी awe में रहती है मुझसे, बहुत डरते हैं, मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्यों डरते हो मुझसे, मैं खुद में खा जाऊंगी, मैं मारती हूँ. I don't do any of that, but still students के हम तो मैम बहुत डरते थे आपकी क्लास में. So I think this was my countenance, because I didn't have a friendliness on my face. I was feeling friendly inside, but unless I convey it in my conversation, the way I look into the classroom to look at the students, they certainly don't feel confident कि वो मुझसे कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं. And certainly you will have to, everybody, all of us have to set our limits as to how much access you want to give to the others. If somebody will run over you, क्या आपको कोई मानता ही नहीं कुछ, जो मर्जी, they will take all liberties which you don't want them to take. So certainly you have to have a balance, but it is important, and this is a very important thing, the benefit we have in the virtual world. In my classroom, when students do performances, I ask them to record themselves so that they can look at their faces, they can look at their body language. Now we have a ready-made compulsory thing that we can all actually look at ourselves. How many times have we looked at ourselves when we speak? अभी नहीं देखते ना, जब शीशे के सामने होते हो तो बोलते नहीं हो, जब बोलते हो तो शीशा सामने नहीं होता है. So one doesn't know how we look. I remember when there was some recording to be done for some documentary. When they sent me this shot, my first recording, I was so surprised कि मैं ऐसे देखते हो बोलते भाई, अच्छा तो नहीं दिख रहा मुझे. I look, मेरे दांत ज़्यादा दिखते हैं, मेरा मुंह ऐसा खुलता है. I started noticing all that because I saw the recording. The first time I noticed that my perception about how I look was very different than what I actually look. So now you have an occasion here that when you speak, certainly we would want you to look at each other when somebody is speaking, look at that person. In the physical world, one of the important communication things we say is that look into the eye. Now, okay, let me try. Now, you have the option of having the speaker on the spotlight. Do that option. So I'll come on the center, so you can see a big picture of me. And tell me whether now you think that I'm looking at you and talking to you. Because that's a very different mechanism. Usually what we do when we are in a video conferencing, that we keep looking at the photos of the students or whoever are the participants while we're speaking to them. But this participant may appear in the center in my screen, but in his screen, he might be on the left side. So he will not see that I'm looking at that person. Nobody knows that whom I am looking at, because pictures keep on moving. So now that I'm speaking, will somebody tell me, and this is the experiment I'm doing, I want you to tell me, you think I was looking at you? Did anyone think that I was looking at you?
Actually, ma'am, your picture
Yes.
is blurred, so we can't estimate.
My picture is also blurred. Is it any better now?
Ma'am, I think it is a problem of a
better.
slower internet connection today.
No, somebody must have an okay internet connection.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
No, ma'am, maybe your internet connection is slower today. That's why the picture is getting blurred.
For everybody, everybody is getting a blurred picture.
Ma'am,
No,
I
it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
sitting
Yes, ma'am.
It's visible, ma'am. It's visible.
clearer
So,
picture.
so those of you who can see me clearly, tell me that when I'm speaking now, do you think I'm speaking to you only?
Yes, ma'am.
When yes,
How
ma'am.
many
Yes,
think
ma'am.
I'm
When I put
speaking to you?
my camera
Yes,
on,
ma'am.
then I'm thinking that you are.
But you know, now look at me. When I'm now speaking, do you think I'm looking at you?
Yes.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, we can't
Now I'm
see
not
in your
looking
eyes.
at you because now I'm looking at the videos that I have in front of me. When I look in the camera and speak in the camera, looking only at the camera and not at the pictures, and each one of you will think I'm talking to you.
Yes.
There's a difference. No? These are the techniques we have to learn that you were addressing. Because in the physical world, we say have an eye contact. And in this one, in order to have an eye contact, our tendency is to look at our own videos or look at the other videos and speak to the, because I'm talking to the whole class, I'm looking at the whole class. But in that process, nobody thinks I'm looking at that person. Maybe somebody does, but majority doesn't. But if I speak into the camera, forgetting about all of you present here, then it will seem like to more people that I'm talking to that particular person. And when I talk to you directly, you are in direct conversation with me. In the classroom, the attention span, the same happens in the courtroom, that when you look at the judge and speak, and when you look at the client and speak, there's a difference in the manner the information is received. Certainly, communication has got all these components about it that one has to focus on. So, okay, going back to the question, we have only talked about communication as being an important skill. And what we were trying to focus on is that how do we improve our communication on the e-platform? We'll come to the physical world also. And to what extent we can in the virtual world also, how much we can improve upon. So, okay, coming back to the same question again. Did you notice I said that you have to create a list, do a list of things what you think are important for a lawyer? Has anybody made that list? Did you see that work? Have you been checking the website where I've left the work for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you create that list?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so who wants to start by pointing out the list? Let me see if I have an option here of writing down the list. When I do the presentation, you get the presentation on part of the screen and rest of the screen you still are visible, some of you. How does it appear to you or at your end?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll open a new document. I do not know whether I can open. You can see this chart.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, 1 second. Delete cell. So, anyone who wants me to add anything on knowledge, attitude, skills, and ethics, any of these aspects, is there anything you think is important? which will not fall into one of these other categories. So who wants to read your list?
Ma'am, I want to read it.
Yeah.
Ma'am, under the skills category, you can add analytical skills, then critical skills, listening skills, oratory, then research and drafting, that is communication skills, written communications, then sharp memory, observation skills, and
Whether sharp memory is a skill, I do not know. I'm just asking. What
ma'am,
else did you say? There was something else you said?
observation,
Observation.
then research and drafting. Then
Actually,
listening
these are two independent ones. I'll put them into different groups.
listening skills,
Listening. Anything on the other three headings? Do you have anything out there?
under knowledge, I can say that a lawyer must have an expert knowledge of the subject matter he is dealing with.
That's a very good formulation. Expert knowledge of subject they are dealing with. And what are the subjects you think they deal with?
Ma'am, if the lawyer is practicing in any specific area of law, let's say
Okay,
he's
so
working with.
basically, so this is what I wanted a clarification on. You're saying expert knowledge of law, whatever law applies to their category, okay?
Whatever law applies to the case.
Yeah, precisely. So, okay, anything else on attitude and ethics?
Ethics, I think he should know the difference between wrong and right, justice, injustice.
Anybody else who wants to contribute to this chart?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so, a lot of points were common, but I'll be adding just the points that I have additionally put into my list.
Okay, great.
In the knowledge section, I have also put that a lawyer should be generally aware about a lot of things, because a lawyer never
Aware of
awareness, because a lawyer never knows the space any case can come from. So we have to be worldly aware. We should know a lot of diverse matters, like generally aware, probably about something, because if there is a criminal lawyer, a case comes, so the lawyer should be aware about post-mortem details and medical terminologies also. So I think that is also an area that a good lawyer should be aware about, like just generally aware. He need not be an expert, but generally.
Should a lawyer need to know about chemistry?
Ma'am, so it is an overlapping area where I feel in the skills also a lawyer should have a zeal for learning. So let's say a matter comes into their hand. So if that matter is dealing something, has something substantial related to chemistry, then a lawyer should have like a basic aptitude that if he researches, he or she should be able to understand and grasp the thing. They should be able to.
Suppose you are doing a sports matter, you are doing the matter, the cricket. You need to know the rules of cricket.
Ma'am,
no, the point I'm emphasizing is precisely what you're saying, that the lawyer's knowledge must not be limited only. That is certainly that is the assumed thing that you will know the law applicable on the case. But you will need to learn lots of other disciplines. You might need to learn psychology, you might need to learn medicine, you might need to learn more these jurisprudence. So forensic, criminology are part of the legal, they're kind of sister disciplines supporting. But there are other disciplines that are completely, you want to do environment. So now we have a law on environment. But before the law was there, environment was not law. Environment is independent topic. So what is the component of water? Law doesn't tell you that. That's the physics which tells you that. So you might need to say whether the water is pure or not. You need to know what are the components of a pure water. That's not written in law. So when we say knowledge, your knowledge will not be limited only to the area of law and related facts, because because when we think of law, we think more in terms of um, the statutory laws. But certainly there will be a lot more other knowledge fields which will be relevant for you. Another student has written, Vivek has written down the social customs and practices. So certainly you will have to be constantly, and what was your name? Anukriti. What Anukriti said, that you have to have a zeal for learning. You have to be aware. You have to keep comprehending, keep keeping track of whatever new things are happening. Because your arguments today cannot be based on what was decided in 1997. Your arguments will have to reflect today's reality. Today's reality, for example, now we have the 377 read down, we have the recognition of the third gender. All these arguments were not available in law. But because of the social reality of these people's lives, people were able to argue that we need to change it. So certainly, he knows from the people from all walks of life. So certainly there is the field of knowledge of a lawyer is not limited only to law. So imagine what is a big challenge you have in front of you, that when we say the field of knowledge is much bigger than merely the knowledge of law. So, okay, returning to our chart here, do we want to add anything more in the other three categories?
Yeah, so a lawyer should know the difference between, professional ethics and personal ethics. So it's just not that he has to follow the justice and the injustice part only in the professional part, but also in the personal life. So that would help him to, build a kind of a relationship with the clients and others.
Okay, so suppose we have a client who comes and says, yes, I did have sexual intercourse with such and such person while she was drunk. She did not know what was happening, and I had sex with her. In our understanding, it is a case of rape. So do we have any kind of compunctions, any kind of reservations, any kind of thoughts about should I or should I not take this case? I'm a feminist lawyer. Or we had other examples where at one point of time, Kiran Bedi was the police commissioner here in Delhi, and she had a lathi charge on lawyers, and every lawyer said, we will not represent her.
Ma'am, I think this is more of a dilemma thing.
Yeah, no. So I'm asking you whether there is a conflict here in this kind of an example between what we think is the moral thing to do and what is professional responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
So there will be situations where you might have a choice to make, not really choice, a dilemma to determine that there is a person who says, yes, I'm a murderer, I am a pedophile, I am a rapist.
Ma'am, I would like to answer this.
Yes, Rahul.
Ma'am, there will be situations where we will be in a dilemma that our moral ethics would say something, but our professional ethics would be different. In such cases, we should also inform the client that morally, I am not in favor of doing your case. So maybe my moral ethics will come in between professionally handling this case, and it may not be doing justice to you. So you may look out for somebody else who would take your case, because even if I take my case, I wouldn't be able to do full justice to you, because morally I would be stopped from doing my best in this case.
We have a reading, I think still in our course, if not, otherwise to check on the net. Um, Mahatma Gandhi's My Experiments with Truth. So there's a one instance where he was very clear, because for him, truth and practice were not two different things. Because in law, what is the truth? Truth is what can be proved in the court of law, not what we consider as truth. So there was an instance where he found that the mistake was of his client in making the accounts. So there was some civil matter. They told the client that I am going to tell the court the truth, that this is where we have made a mistake and this is what is ultimately due to us. This was something which he found on his client side. The other side was not aware of it. So he could have very well got the bigger amount for the client. So he said, no, if you hire me, this is what I am going to do. If you still want to hire me, I'm okay with that. And of course, in this case, they had a happy ending, that the judge actually appreciated this and still gave them the just the settlement. And the client took him, because the client said, oh, no, I hired you for a lot of my other cases also. So I cannot lose you for just one case. So yeah, you represent. So there would be situations where you would have a moral dilemma. But suppose when this, you told, so Rahul said, you should inform that this is a moral dilemma and you will be taking it and whatever. But once we take the case, then you have to do zealous representation. Then you cannot say now my moral dilemma comes in. Because you have to take that call at that point of time. Whether you can do justice, one is that whether the client should be aware of your, suppose you are your party A supporter and the client has come from party B. And it is not a matter against party A alone, against his part, against your party. It's an independent matter. But your ideology, you can still say that look, I belong to such and such party, your opposition party. You still want me to want to hire me? It's okay. But once you hire, then you have to keep all your dilemmas on the side and you have to proceed as per the law. So we need to understand the difference between ethics and morality. Every lawyer has a, especially every client, especially in criminal matters, have a constitutional right to be represented by a lawyer. So it is our professional responsibility to represent. So now if this fellow comes and says, I have committed rape, now what is my job? Should I go to the court and say, oh, he is confessing rape? We have a client confidentiality. Whatever he tells me, I cannot go and tell the court. So then what is my job? How do I then deal with it? Because I am not supposed to now reveal to the court that, oh, look, this fellow has confessed. He's not confessed before the police, he's confessed before me. And whatever he tells me in confidence. So these are the challenges. So certainly becoming aware of what is ethics, understanding where are the dilemmas in ethics and morality, what is my position in there. That's a very, very important awareness on part of the lawyer. We must know that what is it that we are concerned with when we practice. What are we supposed to be doing? Okay, we've been talking for too long, 5:15. Do you want a 5-minute break? Just get up.
Sure,
Yeah, get up from your
Yes,
seat.
ma'am.
Take a, क्या बोलते हैं इसको, एक अंगड़ाई लो अच्छे से, 2-4 jump करो, come back and sit down. 30 seconds, but take a break.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am?
Yeah.
Ma'am, is there a possibility that there is no dilemma when we took the case, like initially, and then subsequently we figure out that the client was lying?
Yes,
And
ma'am, I would like to give an example to Ankit on this. I was explaining this example. A best example would be the case of Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan. When Allahabad court convicted her and produced judgment, Nani Palkhiwala was given her case, and Palkhiwala took the case, got the stay, but before any arguments could be advanced, she declared emergency, and because of that, Palkhiwana resigned as her lawyer. That because of my moral dilemma, I would not be able to defend you, so I do not intend to take this case further. This was an example that even in between, when there is some act of the client where the moral dilemma kicks in, the lawyer has a duty to inform the client that because of the moral dilemma, I may not be doing justice to you, so you should be hiring somebody else if you find it fit for yourself.
Yeah, I know we kind of do this one hypothetical example coming from real cases, that there was a debt case. So somebody has given debt and there's a recovery of the debt. So on the last final day of the argument, the client told the lawyer on the just an hour before the final hearing, let's see, here's actually given me the money, but there's no evidence. So there's no case actually. Now what do? You have been fighting all this while to get him repayment of his money. Now he tells you that the client, the other party has actually paid me the money. But it was all in cash transaction. There's no eyewitness. There's nobody else. It was just me, he and me. And he is dead, and therefore, his sons do not know against whom I'm fighting this case. So nobody knows that actually the money has been paid. Now, as a lawyer, what will you do? You can't go to the court and say, oh, look, this is what this fellow has said. Because whatever, this is a very, very crucial principle that once whatever the client tell you, unless he authorizes you to share it with anybody else, you cannot share that. All that is told in complete confidence to you. So then how do you deal with that?
Ma'am, but it is also said that lawyers are the officers of the court. They are the friends of the court. They must not hide anything from the court.
Yeah, but not contrary to the basic principle of confidentiality. There will be conflicting principles. Which principle do you give credence to? There are a lot of that I'm saying that becoming aware that how many ethical dilemmas are there is important. We'll do some exercises on that. We do not spend much time here, but you do have another course where there's a whole, I think 50% of the course on this. So, okay, on attitude, on any other skill?
On attitude, ma'am, I would like to add willingness to learn throughout the life. So this should be there in the attitude.
And I think patience.
Yes.
Yes. Patience, perseverance,
Resilience.
propriety, and acceptance of failure should be there in the attitude.
Emotional balance inside the court premises.
That is a control over emotions.
Yes, ma'am. We need to have control over it, because if we are fulfilled with the emotions of the clients, how we are going to represent the case in front of judge? It would be a very difficult situation for us to face that particular judge. If we are just filled up with the emotions and we are not focusing over the facts of the case and the law of the land.
Say, actually, ability to empathize and not sympathize. Difference between the two is that when you empathize, you can understand the agony of the client, but you're not stepping into his shoes.
Yes, ma'am.
So sympathy, you also start crying, you also start cribbing.
Or we can put it in this way that stepping into the shoes of the clients, but feeling with him, or instead of feeling for him. So this could this mean the difference between the two, sympathy and empathy?
When somebody, suppose in our family, somebody very dear to our friend has died. Somebody very dear to my friend has died. To go and start weeping with her. Because she is also in such pain and you are in the same pain, you're feeling the same pain. Then you not provide any support to that person. You are one with that person. But what you should be able to do is that understand the pain and still provide her support, so she can come out of her trauma. So as a lawyer, you need to understand, you need to feel the pain, but not suffer because of the pain. But then you are a professional giving that person the professional support at that person requires at that point of time. That's called empathy, that you can understand the pain, but you're not feeling the same pain, and therefore you are not, when you are in pain because of the suffering, we can't think straight. But as a lawyer, we need to think straight. So we can never suffer along with the client, never suffer the same feelings. We can understand their feelings, that how they must be feeling, but we still have to keep our identity there. So empathizing with the client. So there's a woman who gets beaten up, and I also beat up my wife in my house. I can't empathize, na, because ये तो normal है, अगर husband ने मार दिया तो क्या हो गया? घर में मारते हैं husbands. So that's not the attitude we can have when you are dealing with a domestic violence case. So our life certainly has to be without domestic violence in order to be understanding. If your sister is subjected to domestic violence, and you know her, all this domestic violence she goes through, then you come across another woman who says, my husband beats you up, you can relate that this is what my sister goes through, this is what she's going through. So there's a difference in the manner in which you will perceive that situation. And we need to have attitude of empathy, of understanding, so that you can find the best solution, objectively speaking. So in this skills group, do you have anything else to add?
Ma'am, so is it like how a doctor treats a patient? So similarly, a lawyer has to.
Yes, precisely.
Ma'am, a certain degree of stoicism is needed in a lawyer. Yeah. Along with that, propriety, perseverance, and biggest of all, the acceptance of failure. Mm-hmm. There are people who do not accept when they fail. So that is also needed as a quality.
I think that's a very important point Rahul has made. Acceptance of failure. I remember that there was a case I was in the court through a lawyer in a death penalty case, whom I believe was a child. Just an academic, I got no personal knowledge of the person. So knowing the evidence, etc. in the case, so we were fighting that, and we lost. His death penalty was confirmed, despite having the best lawyer on the subject. And I just couldn't deal with it. Even though I was not fighting, I was just there as an academic, involved at an academic level in that case. And that time I realized that how much lawyers have to have that ability to deal with it, that you make the best argument and you still lost. And you knew that you lost for reasons not because of the law, but because of the judge's attitude. Because the judges, this was a death penalty case where the accused had killed 4 people. And judge in the open court said, oh, you cannot let them go just because he's a child, he has killed 4 people. So the law said at that point in time very categorically that no child can be sent to even 1 day of imprisonment. One cannot be kept in police custody. There was a Supreme Court judge in the open court who says, oh, we will not look into the question of anything else excepting the death penalty or life imprisonment. So for me, it was a huge disappointment, and it took me a long time to understand. So I think this was a very important point put on board, that the ability to take failures despite your best efforts. Do not believe that just because you have a good case, you have presented it very well, you are necessarily going to have a favorable judgment. It may not happen. Therefore, be ready for the second step. Be ready to let go of the case because you don't practice in Supreme Court, for example. You are not still an advocate on the court. Whatever might be the reason because of which you might still want to help out. So certainly that's an important point which has been put on board. Anything else? Anybody else who has put something?
Ma'am, one more point would be financial propriety, because there have been lawyers who charge their clients according to the need of that client, and
So
even charging them some.
So where would you put it?
Ethics, ma'am, ethics. Financial propriety should be an ethical subject.
So what is your suggestion? They should charge according to the paying capacity, or they should have a standard charge?
Ma'am, they should always charge according to the paying capacity of the client. You cannot
So you
charge
could say that
huge sums to a person who cannot pay.
if Ambani hires me for divorce case, I should charge them lot more than another person, a university teacher charges files.
Yes, ma'am. That's what economics says, ma'am.
Mutual
That's what
consent
economics
divorce.
says.
No, mutual consent divorce. So it's only
Ma'am,
two
the
hearings.
state taxes the rich more than the poor. So if the lawyer charges the rich more than he would charge a poor person, I don't think there is any deviation from financial propriety.
So whatever is the
Yes, ma'am.
amount of work involved
It
should
will
have no
fund the pro bono
elements.
cases.
No, tell me. So you are saying that whatever be the amount of work required for a particular case, that should not determine your fees. It should be the financial capacity of the person.
Yes, ma'am. Moderation. If Ambani is, for example, coming to a case, I will not charge him the same amount that I will charge a poor person, because it completely depends on the paying capacity. Yes, there would be the similar amount or same amount of work I would be doing in the case, but then it's the same argument like the state. State doesn't provide any special facility to Ambani. It's the same road, same water, everything. But state charges more taxes for the rich and less taxes for the poor. So if the lawyer charges more to the rich according to their paying capacity and less to the poor, I think this is completely in order with the financial propriety.
Yeah, I think this is something you should raise, and the whole class should talk about it in your ethics class also. I'm quite sure that there will be a lot of difference of opinion on that. And there are, there's always also a question as a budding lawyer. What should be your, how do you decide how much you should charge? And that's something we will be handling in a client interviewing. Because the budding lawyer,
one thing I would add,
client मिल जाए, अगर उसको फीस बता दी 50,000 वो पा गया, तो हमें तो कोई फायदा नहीं, हम तो 5,000 में रुके तो सही client. But these are all the, when we say financial propriety, there's a lot of considerations, not only the paying capacity, your own status, your own capacity, your own standing in the court, in the bar. So all there'll be a lot more, and certainly the amount of work required maybe also. There will be a number of considerations, because sometimes we say, okay, if we ever stop that, okay, if this is a mutual consent divorce, whoever comes in, this is what I'm going to charge, a standard one. But if there is somebody in financial need, I'll make an exception. So that may be one way of doing it. So I'm not doing it, I'm not kind of scaling it according to, but I'm saying, okay, because for this kind of work, I will not charge more than this, whoever is this person. But I can charge less if the paying capacity is there. There will be a lot of possibilities. We'll have to think about that, what is it that works best for my conscience and my work and my standing and my profession. So
again, isn't it an ethical issue that if Ambani comes to us for a case, and since we know that he can pay, so we start charging him accordingly? He's already
you want to on what is that road called, where all these shops are, where foreigners come and sell things. So दिल्ली के सड़कों के नाम ही भूल गए. Janpat. So on Janpat, have you seen the shopkeepers giving you one amount and giving another price to the same good to a foreigner?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is unethical. Everything is a profession. So certainly there's a difference between the businessman doing that and a lawyer doing it. So at one level, we also need to understand that there is a difference between a profession and a business. We are not in business, we are in profession. So our sole criteria, in my opinion, may have a different opinion. In my opinion, your sole criteria cannot be only the paying capacity, the status of the person. That may be one of the considerations, certainly, but there has to be some other things also. So I would think that we need to think through this whole aspect. But it's an
Ma'am,
important.
I would like to add one more point in skills. I would like to
Yes.
add one more
Yes.
point in skills. Financial accounting skills. As per the Advocate Act, a lawyer is supposed to maintain good, clean financial records. So a lawyer must know the basics of financial accounting.
Yeah. So knowledge. So where do we say this is a knowledge category?
Ma'am, accounting would be skill. Accounting would be skill.
Oh, accounting is knowledge,
And
na?
it will
Accounting
also
is-
come under knowledge. When you apply that, it will become a skill.
Yeah, because in accounting, the ethical part is because sometimes the lawyer, the client may give you certain money as your fees and certain money which has to be used as towards court expenses, etc. Certainly keeping track of that, accounting and maintaining financial integrity.
Under skills column, we can also add
Maintaining-
time management.
Oh, that's a good one. Hanji. My dog has come to talk to me. So in the skills, you said time management. That's a very important one.
Ma'am, multitasking can also be added under skills.
Multitasking.
We can
Any
also
more?
add how to deal with clients and client servicing, if we can write that.
Client handling, I would say.
Yes, client handling.
Ma'am, I would like to add one more point. Slowly, the field of lawyering is becoming a team effort, and even different companies and different boutique firms have opened up where the lawyer is not the same old one-man army. It's not a one-person job anymore. So a person should have team effort, like team skills. Team skills for a lawyer now is very important. A person should be a team player.
Yeah, team player, teamwork. Yeah.
Teamwork and networking skills.
Yeah, also the soft
Leadership.
skills. Yeah, that will
What is a
count under
soft skill?
the soft skills like the leadership, team working. All these are like acknowledging each and everything, empathizing with the clients. So all this includes under soft skills.
Okay.
Lawyers also must have
We
never
have not,
giving up,
we
never
had
give
a
up attitude.
oratory here. No, we got said oratory. We haven't put, because oratory is only one part of it. Communication.
Never giving up attitude.
Never give up attitude. So attitude. Surely. Keep fighting up to this
Ma'am,
Supreme Court.
there is one more thing which I would like to add in skills and not in knowledge, the habit of reading, even if it is not something regarding law. This reminds me of a famous quote that it said that if a lawyer only knows law, then he is no good more than a mason. It is only the knowledge of art, crafts, literature, cinema that makes him a master craftsman. So the
Naval, can you
lawyer
come on
should.
video? I want to see who is this person.
Ma'am, I was in your gender class, the same person, but if I come on video, the connection gets disconnected. I have a very
Okay,
slow
now
connection.
I got it. Okay, no, now I remember. Okay. Now I remember.
So,
No, because I think we need, there will be some students who will speak a lot more than others, but that should tell those who are not speaking to take this stage and speak. But this is what you're going to learn. If you do not open your mouth, how are you going to learn speaking? So I have here Hemant, who hasn't uttered a word, but who is on video. So Hemant, do you want to add anything which you think is important for a lawyer?
Yes, ma'am. I want to add in a skill, a persuasive skills, or give attention to detail.
Persuasion. Yeah, the skill of persuading is very, very good skill, very important skill. Persuasion. How do you persuade another one? Persuade. E.
Ma'am, it depends on oratory skills or your knowledge of about law, or maybe you can distill their facts in a precise manner. That can be. It is easy for the pleading. It may be easy for the pleading to the court or to the client.
Yeah. So what we call is sifting the facts. Remember your early classes? I don't know if any one of you were in my criminal law class or any class for that matter where we did the cases. We said tell the relevant facts in the case material. There are lots of information in the case material, and I say write down only the relevant facts. When the client tells you come and speak to you, they will tell you 1,000 things, but they want to use you as the catharsis also. Everything may not be relevant. So then you need to know what is relevant for the perspective of for the legal case, and what are the information they kind of shared, but it's not necessary to be included in the case. So certainly sifting of facts is an important one. So I've got another person, Girish, who has been on video. You want to add anything, Girish?
Ma'am, analyzing ability.
Ability to analyze.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me see who else is there.
Content reflection would be part of analytical skills.
Certainly, content reflection will be part of that.
Okay.
So when you say analyze, it may be analysis from different perspectives. Because initially we had written down critical something. When you look at the list again, analytical skill we have said there, and we said also critical skills, critical thinking, something like that was said there. So certainly, how do you analyze? What is the difference between critical and analytical? Anyone?
Ma'am, critical is something a person can showing other dimension, which show the weakness of something, some judgment or facts.
Ma'am, in analytical reasoning we break down the bigger facts into smaller facts, and we limit ourselves to it, and we think by dividing them into blocks and conjoining them together and finding interpersonal relation between them. But while we do critical thinking, we bring knowledge from outside. So these are the two different things, that while doing critical exams, we also apply information from outside, things which we have read or we research, and how it affects our current situation or current thought in our hand. But while doing analytical thing, we only rely on the facts in that case. We break down and we only deal with those which is inside. We do not bring any outside information to it.
Ma'am, while critically examining, we write the positives and negatives as well. Like we will focus on both the parts, positives and negatives.
So now, having identified a whole range of specialist skills, because this paper is much more based on skills, and all of you said we want to learn. We think that at the end of this semester of this course, you will be able to learn what is required of a lawyer. So when you say ability to listen, now how do you learn in a classroom setting listening? One can know very easily that how do you speak, you can learn, because I'm now pinpointing people that, okay, you speak. And then some of you are voluntarily speaking. And we can reflect then, when we come to communication, we will also reflect on our speech. That when we are speaking, what was good about our speech and what can be improved upon. But I'm now onto the listening part. So how do you think you can improve, or no, how do you find out you are a good listener or not a good listener? Or if you're not a good listener, how do you improve? Or even if you're a good listener, how you become a better listener? How do you learn that? What do you think?
We can find out whether we are a good listener or not by asking our friends, so they can tell you give you the clear picture.
I was not a good listener and I didn't hear. What did you say, Rachit? Say it again.
Yes, so ma'am, I'm saying that we can find out whether we are a good listener or not by asking our friends or relatives and see what they have to say, because uh, if you are a good listener, then your friend would definitely know it. Or I have, in my cases, I have seen friends giving me true feedback on this. So
So what do they say? You are a good listener?
yes, I have been a good listener, but
So what are the indicators? What if you have to what do you call that, deconstruct? What are the components of being a good listener? How does the other person know that you're a good listener? Because listen to aap kar rahe ho. How that other person can tell you you're a good listener or not?
One has to be attentive.
What is it in our body, in our gestures, in our responses, which tells the other that you are a good listener?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
eye
if,
contact.
Like
The
nodding
reflections
each
we
and
have,
everything.
Okay, too many people, Prabhat
the
Singh.
reflections we have through the conversation.
Yes,
Like if
ma'am,
someone
being
says
involved in
something,
the conversation.
Give an
Ma'am,
example. Ankit, 1
ma'am,
minute. Prabhat,
yes.
Ankit,
Yes,
stop. Prabhat, tell me what will be an example of your response.
like if someone has been sexually assaulted and she comes to you and she's explaining the story, she's crying, so you can address that part, her emotion, the extent of her emotion, you can address that, so
Yeah.
she feels that you are involved in that somehow and you are interested to like fight the case again.
Okay, ये बताओ, ये इस वाली क्लास में how do we find out? No, ये तो abstract example है. In today's class, can I say who is a good listener in my class?
Ma'am, a
Or in
person
your
who
class,
asks
not only my
follow-up
class, in
questions.
your class, we are all there. Can you identify that who were among the class good listeners?
Ma'am, if the person was actively listening, then he will have some follow-up questions, or he will be like a mirror.
So can
Like
we
he will
say
reflect.
that, no, Asta, can we say then that all the students who have not participated in conversation today, they were not good listeners?
They were passive listeners maybe.
Or at least we can have this impression that
But
they were not attending enough.
whether passive listening is not a good listening?
Not
It is.
compared to
it is
active
at times.
No, that's what, because sometimes you need to, because active listening, passive listening are the manner in which we listen, but in both cases we are listening.
Yes.
Sometimes important to be passive listener also. You cannot
in
always
certain
be
cases.
an active listener.
It depends on
But
situation to situation.
True, but no, what I'm saying is that certainly that when you're a passive listener, how do I know that you are still listening? Suppose, for example, we have Puneet here. Puneet hasn't spoken a word, but I can see his video. Constantly, I can see that he is paying attention to what is happening. The manner in which he is sitting, the manner in which he responds. Sometimes he smiles. He is aware of what all is happening. So he's not participating, but he's listening. He's passively listening, but I can see he's listening. He's a good listener. So if I suddenly ask him something, he responds. So if somebody was just sitting there, now he's nodded. So the fact he nodded is an indication to me that he's listening. He's passively listening, but his nod tells me he's listening. If there was a stage where now we have what we have here is Ishu. Ishu just smiled. So I know she's listening. There are a lot of body cues. I can see other people also smiling. So Hemant is smiling. So certainly by your body language, without uttering a word, you can indicate to me you are listening. And that's what I'm saying. No, if you put your videos on, then I can see. who is listening, who is not listening. I can just see you don't have to participate. Certainly those who are participating, and sometimes you participate and you answer something which I have not asked. I would know that you participated, but you were not listening. It also happens. So responding certainly is a good indicator that the person was listening, because there is a follow-up question there. But many a times, everybody is not prompt in responding orally to enter into a communication. But the inhibitor, there may be a reason because of which this person is not feeling comfortable talking. It's not that he's not listening. So certainly, those of you who have started reading your article, I did ask you to read the first article by Ron Peters for today's class. It has all these: active listening, passive listening. So in the classroom, how do I teach? As a teacher, I know my class is listening or not, because students nod, sometimes they smile. So in their body language, I can see that yes, they're listening. So certainly, some of them are not listening. Then the question is that those who are not listening, why are they not listening? How much is your attention spent? We had a 2-hour class. In a 2-hour class, how much were we able to keep our mind on to it? I'm quite sure that all the 100% time our mind wasn't here. We were not listening. Our mind went somewhere else. As a lawyer, you're sitting in a courtroom and your mind goes somewhere else while your opponent is making an argument. You're doomed. You have to train your mind to keep it focused on what's happening right here. Even if it is 2-hour class, even if it is a 2-hour argument. If you allow your mind to wander, start thinking of something else, start thinking of your presentation after it, you've lost it. So certainly we will have to keep focusing, keep track of your thoughts in the class. Keep reminding yourself, what are you thinking about? When I'm speaking, you're always, all of us are thinking something when I'm speaking. Anybody speaking. So if you keep track of your thoughts, you would know when that thought will take you to something else, and to something else, and then you will be somewhere else in a birthday party where somebody spoke very well. You have lost the class. So then bring your mind back, say, no, I'm in the class, I need to what's happening here. So constantly reminding yourself of being in the class, in the presence, in the scenario where you are. Something you will have to become conscious of. So we'll think about all that. So I think we have been having a long class, 1 hour, 54 minutes, 41 seconds. And for today, it's more than enough. But please, and I'll share this document that we have created on the board that we have on this platform. You can have a look at this. If anyone wants to add something more, you can do that. And what else? So we meet tomorrow. And tomorrow, what are we supposed to do? Kinds of questions, I think. Our schedule says we will talk about kinds of questions. So your homework will be for this week. In this week, you would have sent me an email. One person will send me an email for about 6 persons, forming a group. Okay, we had Amit was the class representative. Is he here today? Amit, are you here today?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So Amit, you have to get to all the class members, create groups of 6 people in each group. Ask them to ensure that they have some strangers in their group.
Yes.
Do you know most of the class fellows?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Do we have a WhatsApp group right now of section E?
Yes.
No. So those who are outside the class, now somebody wants to join now, I will not allow this. So those of you who are outside the section B, you form one group or 2 group, whatever number is it. So do not come into the groups of the section B students. I think somebody needs to mute their mic. There's too much echo happening. Yeah. So by Thursday, I should have in my email or maybe on the document if you have a capacity to upload it, that the list of groups, and then we'll start working in the groups also. So tomorrow we will talk about, there's a small, very short one-page write-up in the materials on kinds of questions. So please have a look at that. And tomorrow we talk about pluses and minuses. And also, in the next two classes, we'll try to frame questions and in a systematic manner. Ability to frame different kinds of questions and identify what is the kind of questions and focusing on what is the kind of answer we get when we form a particular kind of answer. So tomorrow is that. So we are ready to go today. And we'll see you tomorrow. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye-bye for today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, what is the name of your dog?
Thank you, ma'am.